This afternoon I'm going to show you how to make scones with this super simple, easy to follow scone recipe. For the recipe you're going to need 450 grams of self-raising flour, 100 grams of butter or margarine, 50 grams of caster sugar, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 2 eggs and some milk. You're either going to call these scones or scones, doesn't really matter, they're going to be delicious either way. I'm going to show you how to put all these together. Okay, so 450 grams of self-raising flour. Into there we're going to add 2 level teaspoons of baking powder, your 50 grams of sugar, and your 100 grams of butter or spread. Putting butter in, soften it slightly, it'll make it easier to work with. All the ingredients you want to keep as cool as possible. It's a bit like making pastry. And then all we're going to do is rub all this in together using our fingers. So wash your hands first, and we're just going to get this together. And what we're doing is we're looking for a breadcrumb kind of consistency. So again, if you were making a short crust pastry, it would be the same method. As you can see, I'm just rubbing all that in. I'm just going to get that nicely mixed around. What we don't want are any big lumps of butter in there, so we're not making a rough puff pastry or anything like that. Important thing when you're making anything like this, whether it's shortbread, whether it's scones or scones, whether it's pastry, don't overwork the mixture. By hand is the best way. It's quite satisfying as well. You can feel if all those lumps have gone into the mixture there. So when you're happy it's all mixed in and you've got this breadcrumb kind of texture, you're just going to move on to the next stage. So we've got our 2 eggs, and what we're going to do is we're just going to top that amount of liquid up to 300 ml. So your 2 eggs are about 100 ml, so we're going to add about 200 ml of milk in there. You may not use all this. Flours have different absorbencies, depends what you're using. So what you don't want to do is assume you're going to use it all and then your mixture is going to be too wet. So we're just going to give that a quick mix around in there. Sometimes when I'm showing you things out of cook, with eggs, we'll say to sieve them. Absolutely no need when you're baking with them. In fact, what you don't want to do is be left with less egg than you thought you had. So what we're going to do now, very simply, is combine these 2 ingredients. I'm going to do it a bit at a time just to make sure that we don't add too much mixture in. Now you can use a spoon, a palette knife, anything you want just to get this mix going. So we're going to pour around about 1/3 of it in and just combine that nicely. So this dessert spoon will do the job quite nicely. Save yourself a bit of washing up because you've already used the spoon. And as you can see, that's just coming together. I'll get that off of there. We are going to use our hands at some point anyway, so don't worry too much. And then we're going to add some more in. And the reason why we're not putting it all in at once, what we don't want to do is put too much in there and then have to start adding other ingredients in to make your mix drier, because this is going to come together quite quickly. As you can see, it's already, we've only used 2/3 of the mix and we get in there. So I'm going to abandon the spoon and we're going to start to do this by hand. So we can see at the bottom we've still got some dry mix. Just going to add a bit more of that in there and bring it all together. As you see, I'm not really putting much effort in. We're not mixing this round and in a way that's going to make your mixture tough. And what we want to do, we still want to only just bring these scones together, this mixture. It will happen quite quickly and it is easy to put too much liquid in. So we're almost there. It smells absolutely delicious already. We haven't even cooked it. We get all that from the sides as much as we can. And now we're starting to get dough. Just going to knead it together a little bit, but it doesn't take much at all. So I think, looking at that, just a little bit more because we've got a little bit of crumb on the bottom, but just a drizzle just to make sure that. And if I do put too much in, we'll add a bit of flour, but you don't want this to be sticky. That's the last thing it should be. So as you can see, that tiny little bit just made all the difference. In fact, if I'd put any more in there, it was going to be too wet. So we've got this stuck on our fingers, but what we're going to do is just flour the surface. And again, you don't need loads of it. So you see, it's not made into like a bread dough or anything like that. We're not massively overly kneading it, and I don't want too much flour on it either. So all I'm going to do, very quickly, get as much off my hands as I can. Make sure obviously washing your hands before you do this. And I'm just going to bring it together very quickly so that we've got an actual dough. Okay, that's almost there. Are we happy with that? Yeah, so you're making bread or something, you would be doing this for like 10 minutes. So that is what you want to end up with. So we're just going to leave that there for a second. I'll wash my hands. Okay, so you'll notice I haven't discarded what's left, and this flour's only taken sort of 200 ml of that mixture into there, which is fine. We can use that for the egg wash at the end. So you've got your dough. You want to lightly flour your surface, and what we're going to do is we're going to roll this out into roughly 2 centimeters. Now, because we're using a round to cut them, it doesn't really matter that it's, you're not making a perfectly square or round dough shape. We just need to get as many out of it as we can. So make sure it's as even as possible. Like I say, around about 2 centimeters should do the trick. We've got a lined baking tray. And all we're going to do is cut out as many of these as we can. So there we go, that's your first amount. And they're just going to sit nicely on your parchment paper. I'm going to do 6 per tray, so I'm going to use a couple of trays. And then all we're going to do is work that back together. Make sure there's no too much overlaying it or anything like that. Get a bit of that flour up again. Obviously, if you do it directly on a work surface, make sure you've cleaned it down sufficiently beforehand. And again, got about 2 centimeters. We're not, these aren't going in the baker's window, so it's all about the flavour rather than the shape. I wouldn't worry too much about making sure that they are absolutely perfect. If you don't want them to lean, I'm using a fluted cutter here. If you don't want them to lean, don't use a fluted cutter. That's probably it. But the thing is, on the tray, you want them to be as close to the same size as you possibly can, because you don't want them to cook unevenly. Your oven temperature is going on at 200 degrees on a fan oven, so that'd be 220 on a convection oven. I'll just give that a bit more of a roll out, and we'll just put this on that second baking tray over there, and we should be able to make one last one out of this, which might be a little bit different from the others, but yeah, that's perfect. Then all we're going to do is take our mixture and our pastry brush, give them a nice wash on the top. It's got some nice colour to them. So they're ready, they're going to go in the oven to bake, like I said, 200 degrees for a fan oven, 220 for a convection oven. And they're going to go in for around about 12 to 15 minutes. As anything you cook or bake, you're going to do it by sight and by making sure it's ready when it comes out. Okay, so let's get these in the oven. Okay, so they've come out of the oven after around about 13 to 14 minutes. So we'll cut into this one. So as you can see, it's got a nice crumb. It's not tight because we haven't overmixed it. And they are ready to serve. If you wanted to make cheese scones or fruit scones, you can add that in to the mix after it's all come together. Don't put it in at the beginning. Wait till it's all come together. When you're doing your final sort of binding, before you roll it, add in whatever ingredients you want, so cranberries, sultanas, like I said, cheese, anything you want, and it will come out exactly the same way. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you've got any questions or any requests even for anything you'd like to see me bake or cook, leave it in the comments. Please subscribe, and as always, enjoy your food.